It just goes to show what having experience, European pedigree can do, because he grabbed that team by the scruff of the neck, winning that penalty, knocking it round the corner for Cobby, and that cross from Maguire was unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, it's
one of the first names on the team sheet now.
Yeah, he is.
It's one of the most iconic moments that Old Trafford has probably ever seen.
I've told you, he's not inconsistent because he's rubbish. He's inconsistent because he's in a traumatic, toxic Manchester United environment.
And I feel really sorry for the player, but I just think he's got to go.
But once he's had a pre-season under his belt, once he's got more players off the payroll, once he's got his own players in, he has to make a positive start to next season.
I don't want to be sat here going, is there a player in there? You know, next look, we saw what he did at Ipswich, and I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but I'd much rather bring in someone who can hit the ground running.
Newcastle are still at the table, so are Forest. I don't think Arsenal are going to pursue their interest. Liverpool has been mentioned, but I don't see that happening either. So I think there's a good chance this deal gets done.
I was going to say the same
Eric
thing.
Cantona, mate. Yeah.
Okay.
Last time I checked, mate, he's a loose cannon.
Yeah.
I need people to come in this changing room and shake it up. Hello and welcome to Inside Devils talkSPORT show, keeping you up to date with everything coming out of Old Trafford. It's been a massive week, and it's been a whole week since we were last together, so there's loads for us to get stuck into, both the good and the bad. I'm delighted to be joined by Alex Crook, Angelina Kelly, and Ryon Statman Douglas, as always. Let's start with a positive.
Yes.
Because last Thursday was ridiculous. It was. I had such a range of emotions.
Wellness check, is everyone all right?
Is everyone good? Has everyone recovered? Has everyone come down? Well, Sunday against Wolves brought us back down. It was ridiculous. I mean, Crooker, you was commentating on the game. You were sitting a few rows behind me.
Amazing commentary as well,
yes,
by the way.
well done.
I couldn't look in. I was there.
Yeah,
It's always amazing commentary with Crookie. Sum that up.
Wow. I mean, it was hard enough finding the words during the commentary. I think at one stage I did say I'm speechless, which is not ideal when you're doing a radio commentary. I mean, it went from at half-time in normal time feeling like it was going to be a surprisingly routine United win to this sense of foreboding when they conceded the first goal that Ryon would score again and force extra time and maybe penalties. Then they get a man sent off, harshly, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was a red card. No. And you think, well, surely against 10 men, this is going to be plain sailing. And then you find yourselves 2 down. And I was using words like humiliating, embarrassing. I think I actually said half-time of extra time, this is the type of night where you wonder, will this great club ever get back to where
That's how I felt.
Should be?
Yeah.
That bit, I'm so glad you said that, so I feel like it wasn't just me. I think I was gazing into the Sir Alex Ferguson stand, but where it actually says Sir Alex Ferguson. So I was gazing at that and I was like, what's happened to my football?
Yeah, we're done.
Like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like, what is this?
I was the same. And then obviously it just sort of hell breaks loose and I'm screaming names and
random names,
saying football bloody hell, you know. And it was that kind of night, wasn't it? First time ever. I think the 5 goals have been scored in extra time. Only the second time in United's history they've won a match 5-4. The previous game being their last game on English soil before the Munich air crash. So some poignancy there. I mean, it was a night we'll never forget. Yeah. I didn't come away from the ground thinking, well, we're going to win the Europa League now.
See that, and that's what's crazy. Actually, hands on that, because you talk about the psychological boost you can get from winning a game in that manner. But when you dissect it, you go, how on earth did you end up in that situation? So there's still things wrong. But Crookie said there he didn't leave that thinking, I tell you what, it's written for us. Do you see it as a psychological boost that it could be written for us, or do you agree with Crookie?
That's it. I feel like when you walk away from a game with so many goals and a scoreline like that, you, in a way, should be more positive. But because of the way that it came about, I was almost frustrated. Listen, it was a great feeling, like seeing Cobby Mainoo, Harry Maguire scoring those goals. It was fantastic. But you just walk away from it thinking, why were we put in that position? So psychologically, I don't really know how much it helps. I know that Amarim spoke about, like the fans and everything, like that's a really important moment. But, when you're 2-0 up, I thought we were going to end up scoring another 2 in the second half and it'd be done and dusted, to be completely honest.
Well, it felt like, didn't it?
It's frustrating in that sense of like, why do we put ourselves in these situations? And even the progress that we make, it always gets undermined by these things that we do where we don't take our chances and we allow goals to be scored, goals in quick succession. So it was almost like a balancing act for me where I was absolutely buzzing with the whole night of it. But you walk away thinking, again, you're not capitalising on your opportunities, and any positives you have gets undermined by this. So it's a frustrating one, maybe for the players. Psychologically, it will help, but I agree, you don't walk away from it thinking this is a team that is going to absolutely batter Athletic Bilbao, who have, I think, the best defensive record in La Liga. You don't walk away from it thinking, yeah, they'll do a number on them. You're thinking, we have got to hope and pray that everyone shows up that's fit and we just grind it out as best we can.
Yeah, avoid any form of drama like what we saw for you, Ryan. Some of the individuals from the game, though. You know, Casemiro deserves huge praise.
That guy, man.
What's going on?
Because
He's wormed his way back in.
How's it? And to be fair, he's shown great professionalism, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Because he was done. Like, frozen out back end of last season, you know, the famous Jamie Carragher quotes, you know, leave the football before the football leaves you. He's done at this level. Go to Saudi, go to MLS. You're cooked, mate.
Yeah.
You know, Elise was putting him on his backside. It was embarrassing. Then this season starts, not much better. Under Amorim, terrible. He can't play the system. He's frozen out. And then through injuries and just the season just becoming rubbish, he just gets more game time. And then you're going, probably our best performer in that area of the pitch. And wow, what a cameo from him to win the penalty and get 2 assists that late on in the game. Top pro.
Unbelievable. Do you know, and if you look at the last couple of Inside Devils we've done, every so often, Casemiro's creeping into our vocabulary. Hasn't he? You know,
it's one of the first names on the team sheet now.
It's just what. But you know what? It's proved to me. I mean, first of all, yes, Maguire and Cobby get the plaudits, as we've all said, but it just goes to show what having experience, European pedigree can do. Because he grabbed that team by the scruff of the neck, winning that penalty, knocking it round the corner for Cobby, and that cross from Maguire was unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, he was amazing. But what it showed me, it opened up a wider discussion in my own mind, is anyone can suffer in this team, you know. We've talked about, you know, Ganacho, potentially Højlund, I'm sure we're going to get onto as well. They tend to get, you know, age, it's experience, it's this, it's that, it's learning, whatever. But then someone as experienced as Casemiro can suffer as well in this Manchester United environment. But there's still a player there. There's still a player in there.
That he can offer something.
Yes, he can still offer something. So it's, you know, obviously, Casemiro, ship him in the summer. You know, everyone's still of that man.
But
ship
it's
him in the
good that
summer.
his stock has been raised, I think, through this kind of the back end of this season. It's an important thing for us when it comes to trying to get rid, even though he don't want to go because of the wages he's on.
Yeah, exactly. And he stood up and he wants to be counted. And again, that's something to be said where heads could have dropped. Heads could have dropped.
By rights, they should have been dead and buried at 7 minutes to go 4-2 down.
Yeah. So fair play to Casemiro.
Yeah. No, I agree. Some more positives in terms of the individuals. You know, young Harry Amas come off of the bench in that game. And, you know, it's not until you watch things back properly, you forget that, like, well, if he makes a different decision, if he has sort of like a deer in headlights, like, I'm at Old Trafford, it's the last minute, let me try and cross it, and doesn't just, no, let's just keep the ball moving, let me give it to Casemiro. We don't score, you know? So he you know, really shone well and then got his first start against Wolves. And again, I know we'll talk about Wolves a little bit later, but he was very good in that game too. But he's a shining light, isn't he, Crook, at the minute?
He is. Cobby obviously came on and scored a brilliant goal. I mean, it was very similar to the one he got against Liverpool in the league last season. I think we should praise Anana as well after the first leg.
Yeah.
When he absolutely annihilated the fella.
Yeah, I was gonna get there,
he made, 3 big saves during the game?
And it's not often you concede 4 goals on a European night and someone like Onana's in net and none of them are his fault.
Yeah, and that, I guess that sort of illustrates the point that Ange made, that, you know, defensively we're going to have to be a lot sharper against this Bilbao team who aren't going to let us score 5 goals.
No.
That is for certain. Harry Maguire, obviously the match winner, and again, I think a bit like Casemiro, really. I think we all know that in an ideal world, neither of those players are going to be at Old Trafford for too much longer. But Maguire, again, has shown his professionalism, shown his character. It's a brilliant header. You know, a pressure header. He knew that was the game. That was the tie on his forehead, and he absolutely buried it, didn't he? And that is one of the most iconic moments that Old Trafford has probably ever seen.
And then that's the bit I had after the game, right? Where all of this feeling, Ange, right? All of this euphoria, all the endorphins going off in my brain. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't even breathe. Yeah. Like when the last goal went in, I was like, am I going to cry? Am I like? Is it like? And then like on the way down, I went, this is Europa League quarter-final.
Yeah.
You get back down to earth and you're like, how has that happened for the Europa League quarter-final? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a funny feeling. I mean, I kept checking like the aggregate as well because I was like, am I getting this right here? Where are we up to at
I
this
asked
point?
if it was 16-15 at one stage.
It is a very strange feeling because, you know, some people might say this is where, Man United are lucky to be where we are, really, to still be in this competition. But I guess it was the way that Amrin was comparing it to kind of 1999, saying that he'd watched the documentary and that had helped inspire him. I just thought the great juxtaposition of that, of arguably one of United's greatest teams versus, well, he said it, the worst team. But I think one thing that we say it all the time, these players seem to show up for the glamorous games. And we actually saw some character, some heart, and the amount of, Man United fans are massively loyal. The amount of rubbish that they've been dealt in that stadium, fans will be very forgiving when you're given opportunities and moments like that to live through. So I think the fact that we saw some character, the fact that we saw some players stand up and be counted, I echo what Crookie was saying about Harry Maguire. I think the character arc has been so interesting with him, and he's one of those players where, is he the type of player that we need long-term? Absolutely not. But you've got to give the guy credit where it's due. You know, you get stripped of the captaincy. It's very obvious that Erik ten Hag doesn't really rate you. He has to go through a lot of stuff on social media, etc. And he comes out the other side and he scores such an important goal. So it was nice to see the character in the players. But again, you walk away from it frustrated, thinking, well, where's that been in some other games? Why is it only these big, glamorous ties that you decide that you want to show?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the mix zone afterwards when Harry Maguire was talking to the media, and he said, Ryan, kind of sums up my time at United, you know, like the ups and downs and stuff, like it's typical.
Yeah.
And he did feel a bit like, embarrassed is not the right word to use, but he felt a bit awkward and actually had the accountability of like, at 4-2 down, because one of the journalists said, well, what was you thinking at 4-2 down? And it's like he didn't really want to say what they were actually thinking at 4-2 down. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like the criminal behaviour on display to end up at 4-2 against 10 men.
I think they were probably in shock as well.
They were.
Much like the rest of the stadium.
Exactly. It's like the players trying to articulate themselves of how they felt in that moment.
Yeah.
It was almost like a blur. They couldn't explain how they'd actually come back. Yeah. Because it was almost like there's nothing left to play for. Like, when you think about what the fallout was going to be, do you know what I mean? The fallout. I'm not saying Ruben would have got sacked. No. Right? He wouldn't have got sacked.
But the press, the negativity.
The press, and, mate, even fans.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know a lot of United fans that are like, Flex, nah. Yeah. No, you can't lose however many games we've lost. Well, he's lost, 11? How many games he lost in the league? 16?
I'm choosing to blur that stat out.
You can't. Yeah, we lose count. You can't lose that many games. He hasn't made anyone better. Look at Vito Pereira. Look at David. Not for me. Sack him in the summer. There's some United fans
also
who feel that.
If you look at the game, the changes that Ryon made, you know, with Lacazette in particular, made a real impact on the game. The changes that Ruben Amorim made.
He did that in the first leg as well.
Made us look worse. I mean, we got to talk about Luke Shaw. He looked absolutely shot to bits to me, Luke Shaw. He looked like he'd forgotten how to play football.
Yeah.
I was shocked. He's been out for ages. He hasn't started a game in over a year.
4.5 years.
And Amorim even said he was only supposed to play like 15, 20 minutes, but then he went extra time, so he couldn't even play against Wolves. He was out of the whole squad.
Yeah. Do you know what? I feel really bad for Luke Shaw, though. I've got to say, I've got to put my empath hat on here. He's played next to nothing, and he's just getting thrown back into, you know, what was an electric, you know, atmosphere, an electric night. Luke Shaw, let's say in an ideal world he stays injury-free now, and we want to keep him. It's going to take him a while to get back.
Many injuries.
You can't keep waiting around. How many times do we say it about when it's time to cut the cord with people?
Yeah.
I'm sick of waiting around for him to show up, and I just think we can't wait any longer.
Right, that was Thursday. It was incredible, and obviously we're going to be bringing you guys our reactions as we progress to the final of the Europa League, yeah? We're going to progress to the final. There was a game on Sunday in the Premier League that did bring us back down to earth, and that ended in a 1-0 loss against Wolves. Let's quickly talk about it, because there wasn't much to talk about. But Ruben Amorim did stay true to his word in terms of Crookie, that he said, we're going to have to mix things up. The fans are going to have to be patient. It's going to be young players playing. Tyler Frederickson and Harry Amas, although we lost the game, just on those two, they were really good.
Yeah, they were. And, you know, I think it's a great opportunity for some of those young players. I've got to be brutally honest with you here. for the second week in a row, I backed the opposition. I thought Wolves at 2-1
No,
were a great price.
Well, you were right.
And I didn't actually check the score until half-time. That's how disinterested I was.
Yeah.
You know, these Premier League games now we're literally just fulfilling a fixture list. You know, there's nothing riding on them. You can make the argument.
We're not going to get relegated after that game. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we are officially safe.
Congratulations.
And we didn't even
should
need 40
actually
points
be celebrating.
to do it. Didn't even need 40 points.
You can make the argument you need a bit of momentum going into European games, but I just think you've got to wrap everybody up in cotton wool now because it's all about these 2 legs against Bilbao and hopefully getting back there for the final. What I would say is I thought it was quite telling that he rested a lot of players. Rasmus Højlund still started up front. There were a lot of rumours that maybe the boy Obi would get the nod. And I think the reason he stuck with Rasmus was because he's desperate for him to play his way back into form. But actually the opposite happened. You know, probably in that game, he got a better supply line, particularly from Ganacho, than he's got all season. And he never looked like scoring.
Ryan.
Oh.
Your boy Ganacho
could
have had a hat-trick of assists against Wolves. It was a poor game. Wolves didn't do anything.
No.
They really... I thought, you know, they were a week fresher than us, you know, all week to prepare. Cunha back in the starting lineup. I really thought that... But they didn't do anything. Onana had nothing to do apart from pick the ball out the back of net, which was a top draw free kick from Sarabia. But, you know, Ganacho left that field really frustrated because he set up chances for Højlund. He was late arriving. He set up chances for Mason Mount, Bruno, and didn't get anything to come by it.
Yeah, I know. Look, again, Ganacho fan club. He had a good game. And look, and what it does, these Premier League fixtures, I know we can collectively say we're going to write them off, which is fine because we're not getting relegated. We can't do anything in the league. I understand that. However, and momentum is a thing. I guess I understand that as well. But it also is an audition to see the attitude of these players who actually have nothing to play for in the league right now. Do they still approach the games with the same level of determination to get all 3 points? It's a bit of an audition in terms of attitude and ability, really, for next season. That's the way I look at these Premier League fixtures now. So when I'm looking at the microscope under all these players, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to assess. And Ganacho was one of those players. Nothing to play for in the league, and he's head down, always going for it. He puts so many balls into the box. His final product's been criticised so many times. I've told you, he's not inconsistent because he's rubbish. He's inconsistent because he's in a traumatic, toxic Manchester United environment. And it showed.
There is quite a damning stat, though, when it comes to Ganacho.
Oh, go on.
8 goals in his first 20 games of the season. He scored twice since the end of November.
Yeah, bad. Look, he had a bad run of form. I held my hands up and admitted that. He did. However, he scored more goals than last year, by the way.
And another stat is when you're looking at the top performers in this team, Bruno Fernandes is top for goals and assists.
Yeah.
Second is who?
It's Alejandro Ganacho.
It's Alejandro Ganacho. So he's the second most...
Slim pickings, though, guys.
I'm just saying. And then after that, it's Ahmad.
If Ahmad was fit, he'd be second.
Absolutely, Ange. I'm just saying the stats.
I don't see where Ganacho fits in. And, you know, I've done a story in my notebook this lunchtime that United, as they were in January, still would be open to offers for Ganacho. I think reluctantly he would leave because he sees that there's not really a role all the time that we're playing these inverted wingers. We're going to talk about Matheus Cunha. I expect that deal to happen. Ahmad is going to get back fit. They're going to be the 2 number 10s in behind a striker. So where does Ganacho fit?
Well, it's not always who starts the game, it's who finishes it sometimes, you know.
But is he going to want that? Is he going to want to be a super sub?
I think that it's not necessarily just a super sub as well. I know I've said that, but there's going to be plenty of rotation in these squads. It's not going to be the same 2 10s that start every time. I don't think so anyway. And there's so much fluidity to this system and to this squad. I think Garnacho still... I can't believe we're discussing it still.
Mate, we're discussing it because it's a real distinct possibility.
No, and I know...
That's why.
As the season progresses, I start to go into the minority as well.
Yeah, I think you are.
It started as Garnacho. No, we ain't going to sell Garnacho.
Yeah.
And then now it's just like, oh, hold on, how much can we get from him? Can we get 40 mil in the pocket? You know, straight profit. But look...
Who would you rather sell? If they got to sell one, and obviously there are still some financial issues, Kobe or Ganacho?
Ganacho. Yeah, I'd rather sell Ganacho. Look, I'll be honest.
Right answer.
But
he won't go that far.
I don't want to sell either. But I would pick Ganacho to cash in on because Kobe is a hell of a player. Look, and he shows it. And he's been in and out of the squad, mostly out. But when we saw that composure again against Lyon, he's still got it and will continue to flourish. But he stood up to be counted, Ganacho, and that's what I'm going to look for in future Premier League games. And he was one of those players that did that.
Rasmus Højlund. I'm looking in your direction. And Rasmus Højlund, again, wasteful, not getting hold of the ball. Chido comes on instantly, couple of little touches, nice little set of play, knowing when to take one touch, doing the simple things well. Again, just
It's getting worse.
Getting worse?
I mean, he has 1 goal in 29 hours and 28 minutes.
Wow.
That's just...
You know when someone converts it to hours, you know it's bad.
That's how
When
you know
it's not
I
games
mean,
anymore.
we actually could convert this into a day, couldn't we? 29 hours. It's really... And the thing is, I take no pleasure in this situation.
Of course, absolutely.
Because it is painful to watch. I get that Ruben Amorim was trying to protect him, saying, you know, the team need to score goals. Yeah, we get it, but you can read between the lines of what he's saying. I think that Alan Shearer spoke about it quite honestly, of just saying this is a player that just has next to no confidence. And it's just really sad because also when you saw him in the Wolves game and he was getting the odd chance, I knew that nothing was ever going to happen. When he gets that ball at the halfway line and he runs, and
does everything right.
Is it Dorgu that's there waiting?
Yeah,
Dorgu's waiting. I think there's one more.
Was Cobby maybe waiting? I'm not too sure. But it's like he's screaming for, and it's just even things like that. Like you're not even capable of understanding that. The mistiming of I think the Ganacho cross, and it was just. It's sad because even when he does get a chance, you automatically know that he's not going to be able to do anything with it. And I just think. It has to get to the point where how long do you keep this up? I just think he had that run, didn't he, in his first season? I think it was he'd scored like 8 in 8 games in the middle of last season, maybe.
Yeah, it was a real purple patch, and then he got injured.
If we're being completely honest, he's never looked completely convincing. And I understand that it's a difficult situation to be in because he's had the weight of scoring goals on his shoulders since he's been there. He's not had anybody else really to lean on. But it's just unconvincing and you have to get realistic. If United, I joke about, 2028 and all that, but if United genuinely want to start competing with, I'm not even going to say top 4, top 6, top 8, whatever, is this a player that is really going to help us progress? I don't think so. And I feel really sorry for the player, but I just think he's got to go. I just don't see how you can turn things around after this. And if he does, amazing, but I can't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it looks like he's taken this move, which I don't blame him, but he's taken this move far too early in his career.
Yeah.
United have hung him out to dry with no help. The price tag that was put upon him, which is obviously not his fault, was ridiculous. Should never have happened. Even if Rasmus Højlund was 30, 35 million with what we're getting, we'd still be saying, well, that 35 million didn't really work out. Let's move on. But upwards of 65 with the add-ons, etc. It's a really bad one. Away from him, just before we finish off on the Wolves game, because like I said, it was a dead rubber. A lot of United fans again, and maybe it's a loud minority, but the discussion points were, another loss, 15 losses, and I know we say that it doesn't matter, the league is done, but realistically, we're probably going to lose more games, especially in the manner we're going to face these games.
I think we'll win 1 game between now and the end of the season.
And West Ham at home, potentially.
17th could happen.
And that's what I mean. 17th could genuinely happen. I just wanted to ask you, Crookie, Vita Pereira's gone in there, quick success. Do we need to be talking about Amorim and the fact that this is really, really bad, or does it negate the fact that we're in Europa League, the chaos that happened mid-season, the players that we all say aren't good enough, the wholesale change that need to come in? Is that enough of a mitigating factor for us to sort of be like, yeah, but okay, 17th, just forget about it? Or...
I don't think you can compare the two projects. No. Wolverhampton Wanderers have a history, that group of players that, they turn it on when a new manager is appointed. And then almost when they decide they've had enough of that particular manager, they down tools.
So like us then? Like United. That's what we do.
So I'll be interested to see if Pereira can finally be that manager, first one probably since Nuno, and they even gave up on him in the end, who can get a tune out of that dressing room on a consistent basis. United, there were so many problems that Ruben Amorim walked into. The Rashford situation he had to deal with, and I know there's a briefing going around today from the Rashford camp that he's not closed the door on a return to Manchester United. That won't happen.
Do you believe that?
Is that
won't
because
happen.
he's realised he ain't going to Barcelona now? Has the penny finally dropped?
Could he come back? Would United fans accept him back? Is there a way?
That won't happen all the time. Ruben Amorim is in situ.
No.
Because he's decided.
I'm convinced of that. Yeah, he's decided for various reasons that they want to go in a different direction and that the Rashford's not going to be part of the journey. I think Angelina's hitting the nail on the head that this dream move to Barcelona probably isn't going to happen. So they've got a bit of a political game to play between now and the end of the season. It was great to see him score at the Etihad last night, by the way. I enjoyed that one from Agent Marcus. And good luck to him. But again, I'm not sure that whatever club he joins, you're going to see any more than an initial spurt and then him regressing, as we've seen at United. But in terms of Amorim, he had that situation to deal with. Obviously, you had a completely new playing style that he wanted to implement, and he would have told the board, look, this is the way I'm going to play, like it or lump it. So I think they expected there to be a few setbacks along the way. I'm not sure they expected to lose quite as many games as they have. And what I would say, I'm not going to chuck Amorim out to dry just yet. I thought his tactical changes were poor in midweek. I'm not going to read anything at all into the Wolves game, really, because the league season is over. But once he's had a pre-season under his belt, once he's got more players off the payroll, once he's got his own players in, he has to make a positive start to next season.
He does.
This is it, isn't it? Because you think about
Pressure's
it, the further we're dropping down this table now, is it, 3 million per place now we're losing or something like that? That's all well and good.
Quite a few 66 quid tickets for kids, that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you think about it, like, if we win the Europa League, then, we'll finish 17th, that's fine, because, you will get the money from the Champions League and everything. But if that doesn't happen as well as us potentially finishing 17th, that is a terrible cocktail. And that means that the pressure, like you say, next season, with a pre-season, with players, he has got to hit the ground running.
Yeah. We're actually in a very dangerous situation here where we're going to back him in the summer to play that specific system.
Very true.
And that's where it's not a red flag, but it's just something to be wary of.
It's got to work.
It has to work.
Or you buy players that are tactically flexible enough that if he did go, they can still do other jobs.
Yeah.
Which is...
Because you can't write Ineos off for pulling the plug, to be completely honest.
You can't, but in an ideal, what's going to have to happen is if he signs all these players and it doesn't click and we carry on as we've left off and, we start falling down the table, we're going to have to all collectively come to a decision as back him. And it's going to be a really horrible scenario that hopefully we don't encounter.
Yeah, exactly. Right, it's going to be difficult to see us winning much more games. Crookie says one more, and that'll probably be against West Ham, who are just below us. They're probably the only team that we think.
Well, we've still got to play Villa.
Beat.
Obviously, we've got Bournemouth this weekend. Difficult game.
Brentford away.
Brentford away. I
Chelsea
saw
away.
them beat Brighton. Yeah, Chelsea.
It's not going to happen.
I think I'm going to go to the Chelsea game as a fan.
Why?
Well, I might come with you.
I don't know.
Just as a neutral.
Just as long as you're not taking any of your kids to these games and traumatising them, Crookie.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right.
Actually, there was a story there. So they were listening to the commentary on Thursday night, and their mum sent them to bed. Unbeknown to her, they did carry on listening to the commentary.
Oh, good.
In bed.
Under the sheets.
So I might have let the cat out of the bag there. But yeah.
Love that. Right, let's move on to something we do want to talk about, something that is a bit more positivity, and that is transfers. Because we've talked about how rubbish we are and how everything needs to change at Man United. Well, who's going to do it? New players is what's going to do it. And Mateus Cunha has been the big talking point over the last few days, Crookie. A release clause of £62.5 million. There's so much in the media that's happening around this deal. How do you understand it to be the latest on it?
Well, we actually broke it a couple of weeks ago that Manchester United was showing strong interest in Cunha. And the source that gave me that information said, I expect this deal to go through. And it does look to be the case. He's held what have been described to me as positive talks with the hierarchy, more about the football project than I think the finances. They've not yet really got too far down the line in terms of a contract, but they see him as someone who can play in that number 10 role, can play as a striker if needed, but I think more so in behind a number 9. I think he fancies the idea of joining a club like Manchester United. He's not necessarily too fixated by whether there's going to be Champions League football on offer or not. So I think it's really positive. Newcastle are still at the table, so are Forest. I don't think Arsenal are going to pursue their interest. Liverpool have been mentioned, but I don't see that happening either. So I think there's a good chance this deal gets done. The one question mark for me would be his character and his temperament. I'm not convinced he's the most popular player in that Wolves dressing room. And he's got 2 suspensions this season that were avoidable.
Avoidable, but I have seen that worry a lot, and I actually looked into his disciplinary record.
Oh, hello, Flex.
Right. Yeah, because I thought, you know what? Sometimes we get these narratives that something happens in a condensed period of time and it's easy to tarnish the player as that. So I thought, let me look at a bigger sample size. 266 games he's played. How many red cards do you think he's got?
5?
No, less.
3.
Less.
2.
Less.
You're joking me. He's been sent off once.
Once. He's been sent off once.
And that was the Bournemouth game.
And that was in the Bournemouth game, which was fairly recent. Highest...
And you had the Ipswich incident as well.
And the Ipswich incident. Like, don't get me wrong, I know he's got the suspension in this, but by and large, he's not a serial offender of someone who's always suspended. This is a condensed period. They're fighting relegation. It's heated, etc., etc. And I think in those 266 odd games, he's got, I think, 41 yellow cards. And when he was at Hertha Berlin, I think he had like a season high of like 9 yellows in a season. I think he's got like 8 for Wolves. So this isn't a player. Ugarte makes more fouls. Bruno's got more reds in his career. Casemiro, I think we need to focus.
Though, is it? It's the manner of sending off.
It's the manner. Look, he took the geezer's glasses. Shouldn't do that, right?
But as a glasses wearer,
but at the same time,
I'm not happy about that. That is the one thing I am worried about.
Yeah, as a glasses wearer, I can understand why
it's painful.
Right, but at the same time, Crookie, I know this is a crazy comparison, but the principle remains the same.
Go on.
Mate, your favourite player is King Eric Cantona.
I was going to say the same thing. I was
King
going to say the same
Eric
thing.
Cantona, mate.
There, okay.
Last time I checked, mate, he's a loose cannon.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, Carlos Tevez was a loose cannon.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, Roy Keane was a loose cannon.
Wayne Rooney, I guess you put
Wayne
that bracket as
Rooney,
well.
mate, was a loose cannon.
Skinhead Rooney.
So at the end of the day,
you know what? You've made a very
if we're
good case.
turning our nose up at Matheus Cunha, who's taken a pair of glasses off someone in a heated exchange, and yes, it's heated, they're fighting relegation. I need that.
Yeah.
I need people to come in this changing room and shake it up. And I also do think, no disrespect to Wolves, I do think Matheus Cunha is the sort of player as well that will come into this environment and be like, right, okay, right, I'm here. This is a big club.
Humble him maybe a little bit.
Humble him down a little bit. So basically, to my point, I don't see there being a problem with the couple of mishaps. I think there's been way too much made out of it.
Yeah.
Personally.
Taking someone's glasses, kung fu kicking a fan. I mean,
I think.
Yeah. But just on the player, Ange.
Yeah.
The ability of him. You know, I think it was 12 goals, like 6 assists last year, 14 goals this year in counting. You know that the goals are there. You know that the goal contributions are there. You know the quality is there. Is he a player that you think slots in seamlessly, and that's the type of player we should be going for?
100%. I think also it's the fact that he already plays in this system, I think we've spoken about before, that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable with him arriving at Man United. I know that there's a stat that the longest percentage of time spent walking in the Premier League this season, he's at the top of it with
Is that a genuine stat?
Apparently, that's on Opta, yeah.
But
77.6%.
you've got to play the game in the right way.
But he does make a lot of high-intensity sprints, so maybe it's a case of, preserving energy or something. He has got very good numbers when it comes to interceptions. So is it a case of he's able to maybe read the opposition's passes rather than, maybe running around like a headless chicken?
Exactly. No point running around like a blue-ass fight, is there?
yeah, look at Berbatov, man. Berbatov, he played at his own pace. The walking
So the walking worried me at first, but when I deeped it and I thought about it, I was like, it doesn't concern me too much.
That's fine.
Unbelievable stat, though.
Yeah.
But
But look,
how much is it a Man United signing? Like the person who walks the most? Like that's who Man United have signed. But no, I think it would be a great signing. It would be a really exciting signing for Man United. I'd be more
how does it
than happy
accompany
with
Bruno, and what happens? Do you envisage Bruno playing deeper generally in this system, or is this perfect to take the reliance off of Bruno to be the only sole creator, and those two in a 10 is like a positively scary outlook?
That's how I see it. I think just taking a little bit of... listen, Bruno has taken the pressure and done a very, very good job, but I think taking a little bit of that pressure off him is important. I do see those two as number 10s. I think that can work. You've also got Amad Diallo, so if Bruno does need to drop back deep, you can put Diallo in.
Mainu's also a 10 in the system as well.
Mainu is now a 10.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to wait and see with Mason Mount what happens. We'll have to wait and see with, I guess, the likes of, I don't know, whatever happens with Marcus Rashford. Hopefully he's not coming back, like you say, depending what happens with Ganacho. But I do see those two in the number 10. I think that would be really good. And I think if we manage to get a striker that can score goals, the creativity that those two will bring will be good. And like Ryan said, there's going to be a lot of fluidity, a lot of rotation that will be available next season. So again, Amad doesn't really drop out completely if it's those two in the number 10s.
Yeah, I literally completely agree with that. I think when you look at this system, like the wing-backs, for example, Amad can play right wing-back because they'll either, be instructed to attack or distract. They can overlap and underlap. They're pivotal to this system. So, there's a realm where Amad can transition into a 10, Bruno can fall a little bit deeper, and then we can put a right wing-back on. So there'll be so much rotation within this squad. There really will be. But Cunha, who can score, who can create, who's got a bit of something about him, alongside Bruno, who obviously is our star guy, with a goal scorer, with a proper goal scorer up top. I tell you something, that immediately, like you've said, Cunha being added to the mix immediately changes
immediately
us,
better.
makes us better.
Yeah. We're going to spend another couple of minutes on transfers before we move on, Crookie, because another name that's been talked about is Liam Dilap. And depending on where you get your news from, there's a lot of contrasting reports claiming that Manchester United are making him, primary target in terms of the striker position. They're looking to activate his 30 million release clause when Ipswich are confirmed as relegated. But contrary to that, there's other reports talking about Victor Osimhen and saying that actually, depending on Champions League, if Man United can get the budget, I'd much rather a proven goal scorer in him. How do you understand the striker situation?
I think they're both high on the list, and don't rule out necessarily bringing in two forwards. Liam Dilap is still raw, still young, still learning his trade. I think it's another gamble and, dare I say, a mistake if you put all your eggs in that basket, because we've been talking about Rasmus Højlund, wasn't ready to carry the burden that comes with being the number 9 for United. How do we know that Dilap is after one season in the Premier League? If you're giving me an either or, I'd go Osimhen.
I agree. Surely we can't afford to cut corners on this again. We've gone young in Rasmus Højlund. Stupid money, hasn't worked. We've then gone and got support for him and come back with Joshua Zirkzee, who's not a 9. No. And it's like, that is our biggest problem. We can't score goals. For you, Ryan, do you agree with Crookie there?
100%.
We need to be going all out for Osimhen?
Yeah, it worries me a bit. Dilap's a hell of a player, but there's so many elements to this, right? It's still, like you say, cutting corners. There's an element of it's a punt. It is still a punt, and we don't need to take any more punts. I don't want to be sat here going, is there a player in there? Next, look, we saw what he did at Ipswich, and I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but I'd much rather bring in someone who can hit the ground running. And you're still going to have that question of, can they adapt to the Premier League? Yes, but we know that they can score goals. Even when we signed Højlund, he wasn't banging goals away when we signed him.
9 goals is best, I think.
Yeah, he wasn't banging goals away. So look, we need an Osimhen. We do, or Gyökeres. I know that ship sailed, but that's the calibre and the kind of strikers that we need.
I'd take Osimhen over Gyökeres as well. I still think there are doubts over Gyökeres at the top level.
Yeah, you've thought that for a while, haven't you? You're not really 100%.
You watch, he'll go to Arsenal and score 30 goals next season.
Yeah, he probably will, because he's unbelievable. But no, it's fair play. I know you can sometimes get that vibe off a player, and like Liam Dilap for 30 million. I mean, in terms of that being a great opportunistic signing in terms of where we're currently shopping, the aisle we can currently shop in, especially if we don't get European football. Is that the right type of profile we should be looking at? Young, English, the price point is good. There's a body of work there this year. I know it's 1 year, but there is something there.
There's definitely something there. You can understand why they're interested, but I agree with Ryan saying, there's so many different levels to this, and I just think bringing somebody in like that, it is a massive risk. And like Crookie said, we've been sat here talking about Rasmus Højlund. I don't want to have to do the same thing again. I think when you look back at Man United over the last decade plus, we've been so desperate for a competent striker. And I just think this is the one area of the pitch where Ineos maybe need to not be so narrow-minded with what they want of the age bracket of this, of that, etc. We just need somebody, the most likely person to hit the ground running. So I agree with you guys in that Osimhen is the best person for
Does Dilap have that over Højlund, the fact that he has proved it in the Premier League?
He's better than Højlund.
He's better than Højlund, right?
He's better than Højlund. And that kind of contradicts what we're saying. He's way better.
The bar's low saying someone's better than Højlund.
But 12 Premier League goals, double figures at one of the worst teams we've seen in the league.
Yeah.
I just think, again, that step up, and it's no disrespect to him or to Ipswich or whatever, but let's call a spade a spade. Making that jump to Manchester United is absolutely massive. I don't know him, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but how do I know? How can I trust that this is somebody that is ready to take that step up mentally, physically, everything? There are no reassurances. So for me, that's the only reason why I am a little bit concerned about it.
Yeah.
Also, Manchester City have a buyback. And my sources there are suggesting they're not going to take up that option to buy him back. So, if we want to get back to competing for league titles, should we be going all in for a player that Manchester City have discarded?
It happened with Morgan Rogers. It happened with Cole Palmer. It's happened with Pedro Porro, Douglas Luiz. That they've got some.
They were right on James Sancho, though.
Yeah, James Sancho was right.
They were right
James
on him.
Trafford's at Burnley. I would have him in goal. I think it depends on the type of player it is. I just think that I disagree. I just don't want to cut corners. Just lastly on this, Ryan, the wages though. We do talk about we don't want to break our wage structure, etc., etc. Is Victor Osimhen the type of player that would come in and obliterate that sort of intent that we're trying to have on the squad?
Probably. Probably.
250 plus.
Yeah, let's
minimum.
be real.
Casemiro's got to be out.
Yeah, but this is the thing. And Crook
And Willie B. Exactly. These are all the balancing acts of can we actually afford
If we
Exactly.
get rid of Rashford, maybe that wage, that'd free up a bit.
Yeah, we have to sell. Your Sanchos have to go. Your Rashfords have to go. Casemiro, unfortunately, he'll have to go. It's who we cash in on. But Osimhen's going to require the big salary. In an ideal world, right, we don't have Xerxes and Højlund, and we can bring in Osimhen and Dilap. That's the ideal scenario, but we're in an unfortunate position where Xerxes is not a striker. We've got Højlund who's not firing, so we can only have one or the other.
I'd keep Xerxes.
You've got a soft spot for him, haven't you?
And you didn't. Yeah, that's true.
No, I like
hammered
him.
him, but
I like him.
There's something there.
Can't play up front though.
No.
But I like him. I agree with you.
Can't play in the system, but keep him because Cookie likes him.
Yeah. He's turned the corner. See, you can bring Cookie back round.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Once he starts off on a bad foot, you can convert him afterwards. Right. Now, we know that Europa League is the priority this season, so we can expect to see more of United's young talent in the next few league games. And earlier today, Ange caught up with the man in the know when it comes to United's youth setup, Academy Scoop.
Finn, thank you so much for joining me. Now, first up, we're going to get straight into it. Harry Amas, Tyler Frederickson were probably the only positives to come out of Man United's loss to Wolves. As someone who's watched them closer than others, what did you make of them?
Yeah, I was really proud of them, seeing them perform that way in an environment that's so unstable, a game that Manchester United should be winning, but given what we know about where the team is at right now, obviously that's not the reality. I think typically you expect first-team established players to be the security to tidy up for young players that may be, liable to make some mistakes. It felt like the complete opposite against Wolves, where Amas and Frederickson looked two of the most composed and assured players. And if you didn't know better, you'd assume that they've been playing first-team football for years because, to be honest, I don't think they put a foot wrong. It's what we come to expect from especially Amas in the last couple of years, playing for the under-18s since he came through from Watford in 2023. Frederickson's an interesting one because he played a large role in the FA Youth Cup win alongside Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho a couple of years ago. Since then, he's kind of struggled with injuries and hasn't pushed on the same way those other two did. But, he took his chance against Wolves and maybe now he's going to be given a continued opportunity because he certainly deserves it.
So with Amas, did his performance raise further questions over why he wasn't used a bit earlier in the season?
Yeah, I think especially after his pre-season performances under Ten Hag, which I think most people would agree were very positive, especially I think against Arsenal and Liverpool, he looked like he wasn't out of place. So it's been surprising that it's taken this long in the season for him to really get a couple games string together. And I think it's a big positive for all parties, to be honest. Maybe takes a little bit of pressure off Patrick Dorgu, who hasn't really hit the ground running yet. Obviously, Amorim has played him on the right a couple of times, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a wing-back pairing that we see going forward. So the club and Amorim will be really happy that Amas has proved that he is ready for that, responsibility and that challenge because he's stepped up to the plate brilliantly. But yeah, a little bit surprising that it's taken him this long, but the opportunities come now, so it can't look back.
Ruben Amorim has said he may have to play more youngsters in the Premier League in order to prioritise the Europa League. Who do you think has a realistic chance of getting an appearance between now and the end of the season? Who should people be looking out for?
I'd say there's two names that stick out to me alongside the ones that we've already seen in the first team. The first one would be Jack Morehouse. He's a kind of an attacking midfielder. I think he'd slot in really nicely in that left number 10 position. He's very athletic, really, really powerful runner, and he can carry the ball brilliantly, which is something that United maybe don't have in the first team at the moment. He's been playing fantastically for United's under-21s this season. very highly rated internally, and we've seen him on the bench a few times. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if he was to be given a debut before the end of the season. And he's a player I really enjoy watching for the under-21s. And I'd also say Bendito Mantato. He's a really versatile player. He plays primarily at right wing for United's under-18s and under-21s, although a lot of people have drawn similarities to someone like Quenda, and the qualities that he has that allows him to be an effective wing-back. The engine that he's got and the kind of athletic qualities. And he can take it two ways. He can take it on the outside or the inside. He's quite two-footed and offers a lot of kind of attacking quality in the final third. And interestingly, he's played for England's youth age groups at left back. So he's got that kind of defensive ability to him as well. So he's another one that the club really rate highly. And yeah, I think he could be in line for a debut, even though we haven't seen him in the squad just yet. But yeah, Morehouse and Mantato, two players that I think, could be given a chance.
Great stuff. And you also spoke about an exciting young Argentinian player, didn't you, Ange?
Yeah, so this is just a rumour. We've not had Crookie confirm it yet. So this is just a conversation
Crookie,
that's going
we need
round.
you on this.
So his name is Franco Mastantuono, a 17-year-old who's playing at River Plate at the moment. Dubbed as one of the most exciting prospects in South American football, can play as an attacking midfielder, can also play in a number 10 position. So we were talking about Ganacho, but, and Marcus Rashford, etc., if some of those players go out, even if we get someone like Cunha in, at 17, he's probably got like a little bit of room there to go through, a bit of academy football maybe. He can be progressed into that. They do view him a little bit more like a Lenny Yoro, reportedly, that it could be that he is one of these young players brought in with a mind for the future. He does have a £38 million release clause. So that is
Lenny Yoro money. Well, a little bit less, but
yeah, it is a lot of money. Like we say, this is just a rumour that is going round. We don't have it confirmed yet. But the full chat on all of that, and also the fact that Chino Obi is not in that Europa League squad, which is winding me up. A good chat about that will be on the talkSPORT Man United YouTube channel, so we can check all that.
That is the type of signing that I think you're going to see more of. That was part of the remit, I think, when Jason Wilcox came in. So it wouldn't surprise me if there is some substance to that.
Yeah, and we definitely have seen that shift, to be fair. One thing Jason Wilcox is good at, I know at Southampton he said, listen, what did he leave there? But actually the work he did at City, when you look at the production line through there, that's probably his bread and butter. And since he's come in, Sekou Kone, Chido, Aiden Heaven, Diogo Leon, we keep forgetting about him. He signed, still delivered. He's coming in, the young Paraguayan, in the summer. So that emphasis on young players coming through definitely is there. And remember, the full 10-minute interview with Academy Scoop will go out on the talkSPORT YouTube channel and the specific talkSPORT Man United channel as well. Make sure you guys check that out. Right, that's it for another episode of Inside Devils. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to Crookie, Ange and Ryan. And we'll be back on Tuesday after that Bournemouth game. We'll see you next time. Take care.